In the heart of New York City's financial district, behind tinted glass towers and polished marble floors, a nightmare hid in plain sight. Victoria Hayes, 29, was smart, ambitious, and determined to build a career in corporate America. She had worked late nights, given up weekends, and sacrificed relationships just to climb one step closer to her dream. But her boss, Jonathan Steele, CEO of Steele Enterprises, saw her dedication as something else entirely. Opportunity. Jonathan was respected on Wall Street, a man in tailored suits with headlines praising him as a self-made empire builder. But inside his office, he played by his own twisted rules. Every so often, he'd lean over a young female employee's desk, lowering his voice to a whisper. "Stay late tonight. Don't make me regret giving you this job." For months, Victoria endured it. She watched colleagues come out of his office with broken expressions, their promotions delayed, their careers quietly destroyed if they resisted. HR wasn't an option. They reported directly to Jonathan, but Victoria wasn't like the others. Her father had been a cop, and she'd grown up hearing one thing: you fight back when the system is rigged. So she began a dangerous plan. At first, it was just her phone hidden in her handbag recording audio. Then she invested in tiny HD cameras disguised as pens, clocks, and even a USB drive. Each late night, Jonathan forced her to stay. She captured every word, every touch, every threat. For weeks, then months, she gathered evidence not just of her harassment, but of others too. She built a digital time bomb. Victoria knew she couldn't just expose him online. Jonathan had too many lawyers, too much influence. If she went head-to-head, she'd be silenced before anyone even clicked play. She needed something bigger, something undeniable. Then fate handed her the perfect opportunity. Steele Enterprises was preparing for its annual board of directors meeting, where investors and media executives would be present. Jonathan would be at his most arrogant, boasting about profits, power, and his vision for the future. Victoria already knew what her role would be, preparing the presentation slides. What Jonathan didn't know was that one of those slides had been replaced with something else. The night before the meeting, as she rehearsed the final steps of her plan, Victoria stared at her laptop screen. With one keystroke, she could either destroy the most powerful man she'd ever known, nor destroy herself. Her hands trembled. There would be no going back. The office predator, the boardroom, smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Manhattan skyline, and a massive glass table reflected the nervous smiles of Steele Enterprises executives. Jonathan Steele entered last, tall, broad-shouldered, his Rolex gleaming under the lights. The room fell silent as he strode to the head of the table, adjusting his silk tie like a king about to address his court. Cameras were set up for live streaming to overseas investors. "Ladies and gentlemen," Jonathan boomed, flashing a charismatic grin. "This year, Steele Enterprises has outperformed every competitor. We've proven that strength, vision, and discipline build empires." Applause echoed. Investors nodded, impressed. Victoria sat near the back, controlling the projector. On her laptop, the real presentation file waited, lined up with charts, graphs, and at the very end, the footage that would end Jonathan's empire. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She could feel the weight of her secret burning in her chest. Jonathan continued, "We are not just a company. We are the future of American business." He gestured toward Victoria. "Ms. Hayes, please advance the slides." Her hand hovered over the keyboard. With each click, another chart appeared. Growth projections, revenue margins, expansion plans. The board members leaned in, captivated, and then slide 30. The lights dimmed automatically as the video began to play. At first, everyone assumed it was part of the presentation until Jonathan's own voice filled the room. "Stay late tonight. Don't make me regret giving you this job." The room froze. On the massive screen, crystal-clear footage showed Jonathan cornering a young intern in his office, gripping her wrist as she tried to pull away. The intern's terrified expression made gasps ripple across the boardroom. Jonathan's face drained of color. "Turn that off," he barked, slamming a fist against the table. But Victoria had locked the file. No keystroke from his laptop could stop it. More clips followed. Jonathan leaning over desks, whispering threats, pressing women against the wall. Dates and timestamps appeared in the corner of each frame. Weeks of abuse. Months of predation. Every face in the room turned toward him. The investors looked disgusted. The directors whispered furiously among themselves. A reporter who had been invited to cover the company's financial success raised a phone to record the chaos. Jonathan lunged toward Victoria, eyes wild. "You little." Security stepped in before he could reach her. Victoria finally stood. Her voice was steady, though her knees trembled. "This is who Jonathan Steele really is. He built his empire on fear, on silencing women, but today, his silence ends." The final clip played, Jonathan threatening her directly, "If you ever speak, you're finished." But now, his own words had become his executioner. The room erupted. Some board members demanded his resignation on the spot. Others called legal teams. Phones buzzed with news alerts as the footage spread beyond the room live. Unstoppable. Jonathan's empire wasn't just collapsing, it was burning in front of him. Jonathan Steele had built his career on intimidation, but in that moment, stripped of control, he looked smaller than ever. The boardroom buzzed with outrage. Some directors shouted over one another. Others quietly slipped out, already calling the press. Security held Jonathan back as he thrashed against their grip. "You don't know what you're doing," he roared. "I am this company. Without me, Steele Enterprises is nothing." But his words no longer carried weight. Investors were withdrawing and time notifications flooded phones around the room. Within minutes, Steele Enterprises stock began to crash, years of empire disintegrating in a single meeting. Victoria remained standing, her hands clasped in front of her, calm in the chaos. She wasn't a victim anymore, she was the one holding the power. One of the board members, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, rose from her seat. "Mr. Steele, effective immediately. You are suspended. Legal proceedings will begin at once. Ms. Hayes, thank you for your courage." Jonathan's glare shot toward Victoria like venom. But even he knew, the fight was over. Outside the building, the story exploded across news channels. Headlines flashed, "Wall Street Titan exposed in harassment scandal." Hidden cameras bring down Jonathan Steele. Women who had once been too afraid to speak began stepping forward. Former employees, interns, assistants, one by one. They found their voices, adding their stories to Victoria's proof. What Jonathan had buried for years now rose to the surface. Unstoppable. That night, Victoria walked out of the skyscraper into the warm Manhattan air. The city lights shimmered like silent witnesses to her victory. Her phone buzzed with messages from coworkers thanking her, from strangers calling her brave. She paused on the sidewalk, looking up at the steel and glass tower that had once symbolized her prison. Now it was just another building. She smiled. Faintly. Justice wasn't perfect, and the scars would remain, but she had taken back what Jonathan tried to steal. Her dignity. Her voice, and in doing so, she had given countless others the courage to fight back too. If this revenge story gripped you till the very end, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there are many more twists and tales waiting for you.